Imagine standing on a frost-kissed battlefield, the fate of empires resting on a single day's clash. This was the reality at Austerlitz, where Napoleon, the master tactician, painted his masterpiece in the colors of courage and strategy. But how did Napoleon, with fewer men and seemingly cornered, emerge as the master of Europe's chessboard? Was it just sheer brilliance or something more that led to this historic victory? Stay with me as we unravel one of history's most astounding military maneuvers, the art of war, Napoleon style. In 1805, Europe was a tumultuous chessboard, with the Third Coalition arrayed against France. Amidst this strife stood Napoleon Bonaparte, a figure inspiring both awe and dread, who had already dramatically altered the European power landscape. Before the epic showdown at Austerlitz, there was the Battle of Ulm, a brilliant display of Napoleon's strategic prowess, where he outmaneuvered and captured an entire Austrian army, paving the way for the French to take Vienna without resistance. This stunning victory set the stage for Austerlitz, Napoleon's magnum opus, where his military genius would shine brightest, determining the fate of empires and etching his name indelibly into the annals of military history. In the wake of his recent triumphs, including the audacious capture of Vienna, Napoleon approached the Battle of Austerlitz with a strategy that exemplified both daring and ingenuity. Fresh from his victory at Ulm, he was keenly aware of the overconfidence brewing within the numerically superior ranks of the Allied Russian and Austrian forces. Sensing an opportunity in this arrogance, Napoleon crafted a plan centered around deception and psychological manipulation, turning the enemy's perceived strength into their greatest weakness. To set his trap, Napoleon deliberately displayed vulnerability by weakening his right flank. It was a maneuver that went against conventional military wisdom, a testament to his boldness and confidence in his own strategic vision. This feigned weakness was a siren call to the enemy, tempting them with the prospect of a decisive blow against the French forces. By making his right flank appear susceptible, Napoleon aimed to coax the Allies into diverting their forces away from their strong central positions. This tactic was designed to stretch their lines perilously thin, overextending their troops and creating gaps in their defenses. It was a calculated risk, one that required a deep understanding of the enemy's mindset and a willingness to exploit it. While Napoleon skillfully projected vulnerability on his right flank, he simultaneously orchestrated another critical component of his battle plan, largely invisible to the enemy. He maintained a formidable reserve force, a considerable contingent of his best troops directly under his command. These reserves were strategically positioned out of the enemy's line of sight, ready to be deployed at a moment's notice. This hidden force was the linchpin of his strategy, a decisive hammer waiting to strike at the opportune moment. Central to Napoleon's grand design was the Pratzen Heights, a dominant swell of high ground that offered commanding views over the battlefield. In an astute move, he deliberately left this vital position lightly defended, transforming it into an irresistible bait for the Allied commanders. The Pratzen Heights was more than just a piece of terrain. It was the lure in Napoleon's tactical trap, a seemingly exposed target that was too tempting for the enemy to ignore. As Napoleon had predicted, the Allies, buoyed by their numerical superiority and keen to exploit what they perceived as a critical weakness in the French lines, shifted their focus towards capturing this strategically significant elevation. They redirected their main force to seize the Pratzen Heights, diverting significant resources and attention away from other critical areas of the battlefield. This redeployment by the Allies played directly into Napoleon's hands. Their fixation on the Pratzen Heights meant thinning their lines elsewhere, particularly their center, creating vulnerabilities that were not immediately apparent. In focusing on this single objective, the Allied commanders unwittingly exposed themselves to the true danger that lay in Napoleon's concealed reserves. The stage was thus set for a dramatic and decisive intervention by these hidden forces, a maneuver that would exemplify the depth of Napoleon's strategic foresight and his ability to manipulate the battlefield to his advantage. As the battle unfolded and the Allied forces became increasingly fixated on the Pratzen Heights, Napoleon bided his time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. His keen eye surveyed the battlefield, assessing the shifting formations and weaknesses emerging in the enemy ranks. The Allies, consumed by their assault on the Pratzen Heights, had unknowingly played into his hands, creating the opening he had been anticipating. Then, at the pivotal moment with the precision of a seasoned tactician, Napoleon unleashed the power of his hidden reserves, These fresh, elite troops, held back for this exact purpose, surged forward in a fierce and well-coordinated counterattack. Striking with overwhelming force and speed, they targeted the now vulnerable center of the Allied line, a critical juncture that had been weakened and stretched thin due to the enemy's overcommitment at the Pratzen Heights. This masterful move by Napoleon was like a thunderbolt, striking with such suddenness and ferocity that it caught the Allies completely off guard. The French forces, invigorated by the momentum of their hidden reserves, penetrated the heart of the Allied army with devastating effectiveness. This decisive thrust not only disrupted the enemy's formations, but effectively cleaved their forces in two. The impact of this maneuver was immediate and catastrophic for the Allies. Their battle line, once a cohesive front, was now fragmented into isolated segments, unable to support each other effectively. Confusion and disarray rippled through their ranks as commanders struggled to respond to this unexpected turn of events. The psychological effect was just as profound as the physical. The Allied troops, witnessing the sudden reversal of fortunes, were gripped by a sense of panic and uncertainty. This brilliant tactical stroke by Napoleon showcased his ability to convert a carefully laid plan into decisive action on the battlefield. By splitting the Allied army in two, he not only disrupted their operational capabilities, but also sowed chaos in their strategic planning. In one masterful move, he had shifted the balance of the battle irreversibly in his favor, paving the way for one of the most resounding victories in military history. Napoleon's plan at Austerlitz was not just about the physical disposition of troops. It was a chess game of mental fortitude. He was playing on the expectations and ambitions of his adversaries, using their hunger for a swift victory against them. This strategy of deception required precise timing and unwavering nerve, as the slightest miscalculation could have led to disaster. Yet, in this high-stakes gamble, Napoleon demonstrated his mastery of the art of war, blending psychological warfare with tactical genius. As the sun set on the battlefield of Austerlitz, the scale of Napoleon's victory became starkly apparent. The Allied forces, once confident and formidable, were left shattered and retreating in disarray. The battlefield was strewn with casualties, a grim testament to the ferocity of the conflict. Napoleon's triumph at Austerlitz was not just a military success, it was a statement of his strategic genius and dominance on the European stage. The aftermath of the battle had far-reaching consequences. The crushing defeat forced Austria to sue for peace, leading to the Treaty of Pressburg, which significantly altered the political landscape of Europe. This treaty marked a substantial shift in territorial control, with France gaining new lands and further consolidating its power. The defeat also led to the dissolution of the Holy Roman Empire, a seismic change in European politics, and a blow to the centuries-old power structure. For Russia, the defeat was a bitter pill, diminishing its influence and prestige. Tsar Alexander I, who had personally witnessed the defeat, was compelled to reconsider his nation's role and strategy in the ongoing conflict with France. The Battle of Austerlitz, therefore, not only reshaped the map of Europe, but also marked the beginning of a new era in European history, with France under Napoleon emerging as the dominant continental power. The legacy of Austerlitz continued long after the battle, becoming a symbol of military brilliance and a benchmark for future commanders. It solidified Napoleon's reputation as one of the greatest military minds in history, and the tactics he employed at Austerlitz have been studied and admired by generations of military strategists. The battle remains a key subject of study for its innovative tactics, the use of psychological warfare, and the art of turning an enemy's strengths into their vulnerabilities. If you enjoyed this journey into the past, delving into the mind of Napoleon Bonaparte, make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that bring history to life, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. Until next time, keep the wheels of time turning.